What is the virtual DOM in React? The virtual DOM in React is a lightweight copy of the actual document object model, DOM, that is used for creating and rendering user interfaces. It is a programming concept that represents the state of the actual DOM in memory and allows React to efficiently update only the parts of the DOM that need to be changed. This improves performance and reduces the amount of work required by the browser to update the UI. How does the virtual DOM work in React? In React, the virtual DOM is a lightweight representation of the actual DOM. Whenever there is a change in the state of a component, React updates the virtual DOM instead of the actual DOM. The virtual DOM then reconciles the difference between the previous state of the virtual DOM and the updated state. After reconciliation, the virtual DOM calculates the minimum number of changes required to update the actual DOM and applies those changes efficiently. This process is called diffing. Because the virtual DOM is faster to update than the actual DOM, React can update the user interface efficiently and minimize the number of manipulations needed to be done on the actual DOM, resulting in improved performance. What is React Router? React Router is a popular library for React.js applications that enables routing and navigation functionality. It allows developers to create dynamic, single-page web applications with multiple views and URLs by managing the URLs and updating the view based on the URL changes. In short, React Router is a tool that makes it easy to create complex client-side routing in React applications. How do you set up React Router in a project? To set up React Router in a project, you need to install the React Router package via npm or yarn. Import the necessary components and functions from React Router in your application. Wrap your app with a router component from React Router. Define your routes using route components and specify the components that should be rendered for each route. Use the link component to create links to your routes in your application. Here's an example of what the code might look like. JavaScript. Import browser router as router, route, link from React Router DOM. Function app. Return. Router. nav. ul. li. Link to equals /home/link. /li. li. Link to equals /about/link. /li. li. Link to equals /contact/link. /li. /ul. /nav. Route exact path equals /component equals home /. Route path equals /about component equals about /. Route path equals /contact component equals contact /. /router. Note, this is a simplified example and there are additional configurations and options that can be used with React Router depending on your specific needs. How do you define routes in React Router? In React Router, routes are defined using the route component. The route component takes two required props, path which specifies the URL path to match, and component which specifies the component to render when the path is matched. Optionally, you can also pass exact, strict, and sensitive props to modify the matching behavior. Additionally, you can define nested routes by including route components within other route components. How do you handle URL parameters in React Router? In React Router, you can handle URL parameters using the useparams hook. This hook allows you to access the parameters specified in the URL and use them in your components. For example, if your route path is /users/id, you can access the ID parameter using useparams.id. How do you navigate between routes in React Router? In React Router, you can navigate between routes using the link component to generate links to different routes, and the route component to define the mapping between the route's path and the component to be rendered. When a link component is clicked, the URL is updated and the corresponding route component is rendered, showing the appropriate content for that route. You can also programmatically navigate between routes using the history object provided by React Router, which allows you to push new entries onto the history stack and navigate to different paths. What is Redux? Redux is a predictable state container for JavaScript applications. It is commonly used with React to manage the application state in a single source of truth and to make state changes more predictable and easier to debug. With Redux, the state of an application is stored in a single immutable object called the store, and any changes to the state must be made through actions that describe what happened. These actions are handled by pure functions called reducers that update the state in the store. By following these principles, Redux helps to keep the application state organized and maintainable. How does Redux work? Redux is a predictable state container for JavaScript applications. It works by maintaining a single source of truth, a global state, for an application and allowing changes to that state to be made through dispatching actions, which are handled by pure functions called reducers. These reducers take the current state and an action as input and return a new state as output. By following this pattern, Redux makes it easy to manage the state of complex applications and enables better control over data flow and changes within an application. How do you set up Redux in a project? To set up Redux in a project, you typically need to follow these steps. Install the Redux package and its dependencies via a package manager like npm or yarn. Create a Redux store using the createStore function from the Redux package. Define your Redux reducers, which are functions that specify how state changes in response to actions. Use the combine reducers function from the Redux package to combine your reducers into a single root reducer. Use the provider component from the React Redux package to make the Redux store available to your React components. Use the connect function from the React Redux package to connect your React components to the Redux store and specify which parts of the state they need to access. Note that this is just a brief overview, and the actual implementation may vary depending on the specific project requirements and tools being used. What is an action in Redux? In Redux, an action is a plain JavaScript object that represents an event or a user interaction that has occurred in the application. It typically contains a type property that describes the action and can also include additional data, called a payload, which provides more information about the action. When an action is dispatched in Redux, it triggers a change in the application state through a corresponding reducer function. How do you create an action in Redux? To create an action in Redux, you define a plain JavaScript object with a type property that describes the type of action being performed. Optionally, you can also include additional data as properties of the object. What is a reducer in Redux? In Redux, a reducer is a pure function that takes the current state and an action as arguments and returns a new state based on the action type. It is responsible for updating the application state in response to an action. How do you create a reducer in Redux? To create a reducer in Redux, you define a function that takes in two arguments, the current state and an action object, and returns the next state based on the action type. The reducer function should be a pure function, meaning it should not modify the current state, but instead return a new state object. The basic structure of a reducer function in Redux is PHP. Function reducer, state equals initial state, action. Switch, action.type. Case sum underscore action underscore type. Return new state object based on the action. Default. Return state. In this example, initial state is the initial state of your Redux store, and sum underscore action underscore type is a string that represents the type of action being dispatched. Within the switch statement, you can define the logic to create and return a new state object based on the action type. Thanks for watching. For more information, like, comment, and subscribe our channel.